Welcome to the Stronger Tides Podcast, the podcast for small business entrepreneurs and corporate executives to learn more about increasing their client or employee retention through a group cruise program. Ready to drop anchor? Here's your host, travel advisor Rita Perez.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm so happy to have you on another episode. This week, we are going to discuss the generations in the workplace, and we're going to connect it a little bit with retreats at sea and what each generation might think of a retreat at sea and who would benefit the most from that type of engagement and reward. And this week I have actually brought on my first guest. I am so excited. I have Christine Bellido Zakel on, and I want her to introduce herself to you because she is kind of like a jack of all trades. So go ahead, Christine.
Well, that's super sweet of you, Rita. Hi, everyone. I don't know if I'd call myself the jack of all trades, but my name is Christine, and I actually am an insurance professional. I actually work for Progressive Insurance as a marketing representative. But in my free time, between time, I'm actually working on my doctorate degree. I attend St. Leo University, and I am really interested in generations in general in the workplace. And throughout my tenure working at Progressive now, about 8.5 years, something that I really witnessed, which was really interesting to me, has just been this phenomenon of turnover. And I always wondered what impacts turnover and what causes someone to leave or want to stay with an organization. So kind of led me down this rabbit trail. And my actual dissertation topic speaks to turnover intentions of millennials, specifically in the insurance industry. But I feel that this study could be applied to multiple industries. Mm-hmm. And I've noticed, and as you and I have conversed in the past, is that there are a lot of things that kind of define turnover intention and how we can mitigate through that through employee engagement, mm-hmm. and how we can potentially retain those people. So really excited to talk with you about that more in depth today, and hopefully it'll benefit your audience.
Yeah, because that's really what we're here for, and what a retreat at sea is for, is to help increase the retention of employees. And I've said before that a group cruise is not going to be like the one thing that's going to save your retention. It's not going to be like the master, like if I just add this, everything's going to be great. But I think it's a very important component that can help increase the retention rates and increase engagement. And I think it's just a really fun component to add to your culture, to be able to say, yeah, I have a retreat at sea program, so you should come work for my company and not that one across the street.
Absolutely. And I can tell you, being a byproduct of that in my own company when I first started, so just a quick little background for the audience there. I work for an insurance company, as I mentioned, Progressive. However, we were acquired by them. So the company that I worked for previously was entitled American Strategic Insurance, ASI. And we were a privately led company, medium-sized company. Mm-hmm. And one of the incentives or rewards, if you will, was having a retreat at sea. Yeah. So this is something that we all looked forward to. It was an amazing team-building exercise. It was a great way to connect with your coworkers, and it's always something to talk about and memories that are had for years to come. And it's funny because even though we were acquired by Progressive, the people that stayed on throughout that merger and acquisition thereof, that's something that we always talk about. So
nice.
Absolutely. It's a great thing to have.
So I know that in most organizations, there's going to be obviously different generations. There's the millennials like us who are starting / have gotten into the workforce already. we have the Gen Xers who are in the thick of their careers, and then we have the baby boomers who are starting to think about retirement. So with those three different mentalities, can you just say a brief background on who they are and what their motivations are in regards to working, the workplace, and staying in a certain company?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot of different notions. It's really hard for me to condense that in a short amount of time, but I'll do my best. So with baby boomers, we're looking at those typically born between 1948 and 1965. So those are, those individuals that are at the peak of retirement or, thinking about retiring. So they're having some kind of succession plan in place. And they are motivated by, hard work. You earn it. A good example of a baby boomer would be President Obama, as an example. So they prefer monetary rewards, but they also value retirement planning. They also like, in terms of peer recognition, they love physical rewards as well. They really acknowledge input and output. So as I was mentioning, you work hard, you earn it, you don't question authority, this is just how it is. You follow the chain of command. And it's just because of their parents, as an example, coming out from their parents' era, which was the traditionalists. So that was kind of, think about the Great Recession. So that's what their parents experienced. So their parents are trying to survive. So that's what they witnessed, and hence the influencers, as I like to call them, are what impact an individual to be a certain way. So, of course, time, environment, society, the way you were raised, your culture, there's so many other outside influencers that impact a generation. So, chiming in about Gen Xers, so those are individuals born between 1966 to 1984. So this is my sister. she was born in 1981. We always joke about it. And a lot of times you'll even hear millennials like, I'm not a millennial. And, they were born in 1985. Well, guess what, homie? Yeah, you are. But it's funny because it's like, there's these weird associations, and I say weird because we're all a little bit weird. I joke about that because, we have all these funny notions and stigma about a particular generation. It's like, well, back in my day, and it's funny because we're going to find ourselves doing it too. And I do, honestly, with my siblings. So Gen Xers were born between that time period. So they're kind of thinking about what they're going to do. As you mentioned, they're in the peak of their career, so they're really thirsty for advancement, and their recognition styles are kind of in between a baby boomer and a millennial, which I'll get to in a second. But they value monetary rewards, bonuses, incentives. They have this preferred communication style of interactions with people, physically speaking. So it's not just, hey, let's text. They'll text, they'll do Zoom calls, they'll pick up the phone, but they want to physically see you face to face as well. With millennials, we tend to be like texting or using social media a lot. So it's really easy for us to just send a message real quick. Like, I don't need to call you, right? We can still get the same message across. And not to say that millennials don't enjoy physical conversations. I mean, we're having one, right? But it's like, it's one of those things that people are like, okay. So they value transformational leadership. And what I've noticed with Gen Xers, they are the largest entrepreneurial group that exists today in the workforce. So think about Elon Musk. He was an entrepreneur, and now he is like one of the world's richest men, owning Tesla. He's incredibly smart, and he cares about his employees. And it's that type of mentality is like, okay, what are we going to do for the good of others, and how are we going to kind of benefit society in the same program? And so their welcome benefits, of course, as I was mentioning, their recognition style. They also really desire like stock options or not just like monetary rewards, but also physical rewards. So similar to baby boomers where they want like a physical trophy, except in this regard, they want something that caters a little bit more to them. So quote unquote, this company retreat as an example. And then you think about millennials, our age.
Yeah.
So yeah, right? So 1984, well, 1985 really, up until 1997. So if you were born between that time period, you are a millennial, also known as Gen Y. And this is actually the largest cohort in the workforce today, and hence why I always thought this is very interesting in terms of turnover intention and how to engage these employees. So by 2023, we're going to make up 75% of the workforce in America. 75%. So it is imperative that organizations begin to really understand what it is to engage this particular cohort. And our preferred recognition style isn't so much monetary, actually, because we actually are the product of the recession. So a lot of
multiple,
us were in school, right? Multiple recessions. I know, you know, we were in it. So
yeah.
I stayed in college longer. A lot of people did because there were no jobs. So you're living off of student loans. You're becoming more educated, quote unquote. And so then when you finally have an opportunity to get into the workforce, you're competing people with, you know, years of experience, but here you are with a master's degree and people aren't giving you the time of day and are paying you like $25,000 a year when you can barely live off of that in today's day and age. So we have found an itch, if you will. So we've been known as the cohort that job hops, and that's because we're always looking for advancement opportunities. And I think a lot of times it's because companies are so stagnant and they won't change their approach because they're speaking to the times of which they were raised in. And I think it's very imperative that organizations begin to become more adaptive and understand the benefits and monetary rewards. Okay, great. But what else goes beyond that?
Yeah.
You know, what else can we do for our employees to engage with them? And I'll have to tell you, it has a lot to do with leadership styles. And so in our generation, we value transformational leaders. So people that care about their employees, a way that they can influence them positively. And it's not just so much, hey, this company pays me well, so I'm going to stay. But what benefits do they have to offer? Are they going to offer me, you know, free health care? Are they going to offer me a cruise because I'm doing a good job, you know? Are they going to offer me, it's like tuition reimbursement because I care about, you know, my professional growth and my educational growth. And I want to continue learning. So there's a lot that's involved with that. But in our generation, we really value not just transformational leadership, but corporate responsibility. So corporate social responsibility. What are the company's core values? Are they adding more to the culture, the society that we're in? You know, I can say without a doubt, one of the things that I absolutely loved about Progressive this year is how involved they were with the community. So this whole Black Lives Matter movement, they donated over $1 million to Equal Justice
That's awesome.
Initiative. And that to me was huge. You know, my little dollars that I, chip in every day there is going for the larger good. And I'm just doing my job. And so those are things that I think are very important. And when we think about the next generation, so Zennials, Gen Zers, anyone born after 1997, those are, so my stepsister as an example, she's 23, she's a Gen Zer.
Okay.
And she, she only knows like technology, you know? So for them, they're really quick to adapt to whatever's being thrown at them. You know, right now we're in this culture where we're in COVID, we're all stuck inside, and kindergartners are having to sit in front of a computer 8 hours a day and trying to learn, you know, this is crazy. So it's like, what things are companies offering their employees that go beyond just a paycheck, essentially? Correct. And I think our generation is one and the upcoming generation are going to be even more vocal about their needs and wants and desires. And if companies can't adapt to that, they're not going to be able to retain that talent.
Correct.
And so, to your point, I think rewards such as these, like the cruise, would be great. Can you tell me a little bit more about the company retreat? Because I know we talked about it, but I'm kind of interested to see what you offer.
So the corporate retreats at sea, they can be one of two ways. The way that I mostly do it is that there's an educational component, which means that you're going on the company retreat. They usually don't bring spouses or children. They want it to be focused on a transformation within the company. So there's education about like the projects that are coming up. There's motivational, like there's a keynote speech, of course. They do a lot of team building. They do like a lot of icebreakers, because the first day or so is everybody's kind of like getting to know each other. I mean, you may have worked with these people for a while,
Right.
but you're in a different setting. And the COO that I work with his company retreat, he had labeled it as like a forced camp situation. And I love that because it really is like a forced camp. Like, you are going to make friends.
Yeah.
So like you may start off like not being into it, and then later on there's so many relationships that have been built, because part of it too, especially with this tech company, they have a lot of satellite locations. So a lot of people may be working from California and Florida and Indiana, and they all come together. And this is like one of the times in the year that they all come together to get to know each other. That's one factor of it. Then there's lots of different areas. So you have like sales and marketing, who may not, well, they probably talk with finance more than others, but you have your engineers who are creating the tech, you have your sales people, HR people. So you have a lot of people who indirectly work with each other, but they don't understand what each one does. And from talking with the COO one time, he said that there's not really a tangible, like, we make an extra $5 million every year because of the cruise retreat. But he said that they can identify new business that has been built for the company because of the relationships that are built at the cruise retreat.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I really like that. It kind of goes aligned with similar to what we did. And the reason why I asked about that is it sounds like from what we did as an organization, it was similar.
Mm-hmm.
Working at a medium-sized company, you do know the individual,
Mm-hmm.
but you don't really know them in the sense like, okay, this is their family, this is where they live, this is how they were raised, this
Exactly.
is, ooh, I didn't know they could get down like that on the dance floor.
Yeah.
So it's like you start to learn a lot about people in that regard. And I have to say, being a byproduct of an individual that experienced a cruise, it was awesome because we had goals each month and we had to reach those goals. So you were always kind of holding others accountable.
Okay.
So if people weren't doing their job, it's like, hey, homie, come on, we got that cruise, It's like, I joke about it and I laugh about it. It's true. It really holds people accountable, and it was so rewarding because, like we were mentioning, we didn't get like a monetary bonus at that moment. It was a cruise, and in my mind, I enjoy experiences so much more than material things, in my personal opinion.
Yeah.
And everyone is motivated a little bit differently.
Correct.
But I can tell you, when you have a cruise, it's an all-inclusive experience.
Exactly.
And you really get to know your peers.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had team building activities where it was just us as a team.
Yes.
And we did fun. It's not like you're sitting in seminars all day long, not like learning things, but
like Charlie Brown teacher, wah.
Exactly. No, it's really engaging.
Yes.
And it causes you to think, and you really get to know your peers as well. So they had like 2 truths and a lie was one of our icebreakers.
Nice.
And so you're going around during happy hour, trying to loosen up a little bit. and do the 2 truths and a lie. That was like our first day. And then by the morning, when you're, meeting with one another, like, oh, okay, I know a little bit more about this person. I just talked with them last night. And like you said, by the end of the cruise, everyone's friends. And, and as I was mentioning, the last cruise I went on was like 4 years ago or so with the company at the time.
Nice.
And I still have those memories fresh in my mind, so it's cool. I think it's a great concept, and I support it all day long.
Yeah. Yay. That's great, because like last week I had talked about why you should why you need to add a cruise retreat to your program. And I had said, pizza parties are not enough. They may have been good, and they may be like a good baseline if you haven't done anything for your employees, but pizza parties can only go so far now.
Right, absolutely. And I think, just high level, and I can kind of tie this in even with my research, but just what I've learned, there's like this, the technical term is a 2-factor theory of motivation. And it's by this guy named Herzberg. And it was like hygiene and motivational factors, which are really funny terms now that I think about it. But just imagine like 2 arrows, one going up and one going down. The dissatisfiers is what we call the 2-factor motivation. So these are the things that kind of don't feel good, make you not want to be at your place of employment. And it could deal with a lot of things. Number one is your manager. And this has just been a wise tale, but it's actually true, and I have facts to back it up. But people don't leave the company because of the company. They leave because of their boss. They leave because of the manager. And I think, as we were mentioning, transformational leadership is highly valued in our generation. So it goes beyond just salary and benefits, financial benefits, if you will. That can also be listed as a dissatisfier, because you can throw more money at me, that's great, but if I'm still miserable every day, I'm not going to perform at my best.
Correct.
And I may not want to stay there that long. Your coworkers is another one. You don't know who you're working with, or it's a hostile environment. And then just like policies, or when things get too restrictive in a way, it's like it becomes so black and white that there's no room for error, and not every job requires that, and this is the thing, there's not a one size fits all for an organization.
Correct.
But if you can just try to mitigate some of that, and like I was mentioning, having older companies or more established companies, tenured companies, being more adaptive and being able to kind of mend with the times, you would see that it would enhance more engagement and retention. So then you have those like motivators, which would be like the upward arrow, and that's your recognition style, achievements that are received by someone, growth, advancement, job challenges in a positive way, responsibilities. So as I was mentioning before, we all had our department goals. So if one department wasn't meeting it, we were all affected by it. So again, holding each other accountable, and it motivates you in a positive way so that you can earn that reward. In a team spirit, know. So I think that's really important as we kind of identify generations in the workplace and really increasing retention. It's not just like you were saying, a one size fits all program, but it does benefit so many people.
Going into company culture and companies that would benefit from a Retreat at Sea type program, what are some factors that kind of come out that are kind of like identifiers, like, oh, this company is going to be a really good match for a Retreat at Sea program?
So it's funny that you mentioned that, because when we were talking about this previously, I feel that it can cross so many different industries. And the reason why I say that is I'm an insurance professional. I'm not in retail, or, I'm not in the tech industry. But our organization benefited so much from that company retreat. And I think it could be cross referenced in other industries. So I think about medium-sized companies, those that are larger than 50 people, personally speaking. And the reason why I say that is because at that level, you're having enough revenue coming in to where
Correct.
you're most likely incentivizing your employees in some regard. So what I would be very intrigued by this personally, and it might be a future research project, who knows? But like going to a trade show as an example, because there's so many different vendors that are there, and you think about, why are these people here? And oftentimes in the trade shows that I've been to in my industry, you see everyone under the sun. There's people there trying to do vacation packages, actually, just for what you are talking about.
Good.
We also have vendors like roofing contractors. Being in insurance, claims happen, so you need good vendors that can repair homes. So you have home repair, maintenance, you have home warranty offerings. So a lot of times independent agents, brick and mortar places will go to these trade shows to find out a little bit more of how they can direct their client base to these vendors, or developing partnerships in a sense. And on the outside looking in, I can see so many of those businesses, medium size specifically, and even large, I won't say like super large, but large organizations that could benefit from a company retreat. And like I said, it can go across so many different industries. I can tell you, I have a dear friend of mine, she's a periodontist, and she has, it's a small business, but she has maybe about 15, 20 people in her business, and she took them to Las Vegas, as her way to reward them for a weekend. And they were able to do something similar where, they were able to have like a seminar, get to kind of know each other a little bit better and break the ice and reward for a great year. And, it was a great experience. So that is a completely different industry altogether. I don't know anything about dentistry, but it seems to work.
No, and that makes me think of too, that maybe smaller organizations, maybe they collectively come together. Like if we're taking insurance, maybe there's an insurance association. And so like the local Orlando or the local Clearwater chapter all gets together and they do an educational program, and people from different branches can get to know each other and learn what's working at their branch also.
Absolutely.
I hadn't really thought about that before, but
I think that is a great idea, because I can tell you, being a marketing representative, my territory is national, so I'm a national account marketing rep, and every business that I go to, somehow down the line when we are talking about business retention, employees always come up, turnover always comes up. And it's something that they always discuss, and they're larger companies. I mean, we have partnerships with other insurance organizations. We have partnerships with title companies, home builders. So if you ever heard of like D.R. Horton as an example, we work with them. It's amazing to see that, because these are large, very successful companies, but they're thinking about the impact of turnover, essentially. And so it's interesting to see that, and anything that they can do to try and mitigate that from a large company perspective, even to what we were just talking about, the brick and mortar shops that have, just a handful of individuals there. There is an organization, Independent Insurance Agents and Brokers Association, that many agents are part of, and they go to this convention, once a year, and they host continuing educational credits there as a way to gain hours for their accreditation. But on top of that, they get to engage with other professionals, like you were mentioning, in a great environment. Yeah. And why not do it at sea? That sounds like so much fun, right?
Exactly. Especially now that, everybody has been cooped up at home. And I think, like, I mean, I'm an introvert, so I was fine with it. But I think now I'm starting to be like, I need to get out. I need to
Yeah.
escape somewhere. It's been too long since I've traveled. So there's that. There's people just haven't been in the office because everybody's trying to keep everybody safe. So while you may have had like that really big connection in the office, now that may have dwindled a little bit. And so, of course, I don't think 2021 is going to be like the comeback year for cruises, but I think 2022 is really the time that needs to start thinking that companies need to start thinking, okay, everybody's been cooped up for so long. We can't do anything in the short term because maybe they also, I know some companies have not hurt in any regard during our pandemic time. Other companies have hurt a lot, a little. And so some other companies may need more time even to just like get the funds and plan up. But even talking about funds too, it is more expensive to hire a new person than retain a current employee.
Absolutely. I can tell you that right now. It can cost anywhere from, oh my gosh, when you talk about turnover, the biggest thing that comes to my mind, and I wish I had the actual numbers in front of me. I was trying to look at it really quickly in my notes, but it can cost anywhere from 1 to 2 times a person's annual salary to replace those individuals. And the reason why is because you think about all the experience that comes with that one individual that was with the organization for X amount of time. And there's a formula that's out there that kind of talks about it. So the longer an employee stays with an organization, the more intelligence that they have, right, of that particular company.
Yeah.
So that emotional intelligence, that human capital, if you will, is lost when they leave. So now you have to get someone that is equally as good, or maybe having to hire multiple people just to compensate for that one individual that did multiple tasks. So now you're having to not only attract new people, you're having to hire these people. So that comes with a lot of costs to go through the whole interviewing process, testing process, onboarding process, depending on what industry you're in. And then after that, you have to train these people. So you got to train these people. And then despite that, you still have a time period of that probationary period where you're learning about the organization. So again, when you add those costs, as you were just mentioning, it can cost substantial amounts for companies to lose their people. And that's why I think it's so important that we think about how to engage this type of cohort that you're interested in retaining, whether it's ours or others. You know, like I was mentioning, we have pretty much about 4 generations working in the workplace today. So those Gen Zers, they're not going to be too concerned about 401k or Social Security because unfortunately those things aren't really existing for them to be concerned about today. You know, so it's tight. Like, how do you attract these people? So there's a bigger picture that needs to be looked at, and you know, uncomfortable discussions that need to be had.
Correct. Yeah, because when I look at the tech company that I work with, I see that they value individualism. They value, in the same aspect of individualism, they value the other person's voice. They want the other person to be heard. They want the other person to be valued and feel part of a community. They offer really great benefits and a wide variety of benefits. They're really looking for a transformation. It's not really like there's one conductor and then everybody following. It's kind of like the collective group is pushing the organization forward. So going off of that, obviously, like the opposite would be not valuing individualism. Like this is the way that we've done it all the time. This is how we're going to continue. No, we're not going to do anything innovative because that goes against everything in the past. But what kind of industries maybe is a retreat program probably not tailored for? Because I know there's going to be certain industries it's great for, and we've mentioned that insurance, tech, medical. But the first industry that I think of is hospitality, which is so like close to my heart, but I just can't see it working just how the hospitality industry is and how it's been built.
I can agree with that, and I think the reason why I can agree with that, not being in it, but I would feel as a employee being immersed in hospitality 24/7 to then go on a cruise and be kind of immersed in that environment more so, knowing that, you know, these individuals that are catering to you all weekend are the same people that
your
be
people.
working with essentially. I can see how that may not be attractive for someone in that industry. I would also say, you know,
Hi. Yes, it's me. I'm popping in for a commercial break. Hasn't this conversation been amazing? I hope you have really enjoyed it because we really enjoyed geeking out, as you can probably tell. But something else that I'm geeking out about, I have a new webinar series. It's a 2-part series. It's coming out actually today, and it'll be available for a week. It is why your company needs to have their next corporate retreat at sea. If you are at all interested, it will be available on all my social platforms. You go to Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter. There will be a way to find it from any of those platforms. Rita Ventures or Rita Ventures Group Cruising, why you need to take your next corporate retreat to sea. Now back to the show.
Well, I don't want to put anyone under the bus, but if I think about like educational systems, you know, essentially.
Okay.
But that also comes at a disadvantage because it's like, what educational system are we talking about? You know, I'm thinking like K-8 type of teachers, if you will.
Yeah.
You know,
they're
like
probably not going to have the funds.
Ones, they're not going to have time. You know, they're going to be worried about their curriculum or whatever they got to do. But if you're thinking about like university professors coming together, like doctors or PhDs, you know, coming together to do academic research as an example, or, you know, trying to get with other people in that field, I could see how it could be appealing to them. And I've joined a lot of conferences in my doctoral journey, and it's great because you connect with people from all over the world. It would be great if it was like on a cruise. You know, it would be really cool too, because I've heard of this. So like getting certifications as an example. One thing is on my bucket list is to become a Zumba instructor. And
cool.
Yeah, I love Zumba, girls. So much fun. So Zumba is like, you get to shake your booty for like a whole hour and burn all these calories, and you feel like you just had a dance party. So I love it. It's a great way. But all joking aside, like they have Zumba cruises. So like for you to get your certification or to get your continuing educational credits so that you can maintain that certification, they offer a cruise, Zumba cruise, where you like literally Zumba all weekend long.
It's a dance party.
Yeah, it's like a dance party for people that like it. But you know, I have to think about this because I feel like it's very difficult to think about why it wouldn't benefit somebody. The only other industry I could think of is potentially like chefs, you know, like culinary maybe.
See, and that just coming from my side as being a travel advisor, I think I'm like, oh, there'd be so much fun things for the chefs to do, because working with the cruise lines, there's endless possibilities. Like you could do continuing education for chefs. I don't know if there's any program like that, but it would probably have to be a more luxury type ship also that has
that's what I'm thinking.
Upper class,
Yeah, because you're talking about some bougie stuff. Like caviar.
Because that's a whole other component of the do you want it to be a mass market contemporary type cruise, which is easier to bring your whole team on? Do you want this cruise just to be for your executive team? Then you may be able to splurge a little bit for a premium.
Yep. I think, we should kind of focus on that because there's different cruise programs for different companies. So there's options, which is great because let's say you are a medium-sized business and you're kind of unsure if this cruise thing is going to be something that you really want to offer or not. You can do like a teaser and do a leadership cruise where maybe you're doing, a leadership brainstorm meeting. I know a lot of companies do, senior management retreats where they kind of come together, enjoy getting out of the office, but brainstorming about the next year. What are they going to do different? What goals are they going to have? And I think being away from the office, being in a different location, especially out at sea, because there's really no sense of time, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
You have all the time in the world to kind of come together and think about it. So I think it's great because there are so many options. You could invite the whole company. I know one of the cruises that I did, they had an option where you could bring your spouse. So they got a pretty good discounted rate if you did want to bring your spouse. Obviously, they wouldn't pay for them. They'd only pay for the employee, but you had that option. So if you did want to bring your spouse, you could. So I always thought that was cool, too, because that's also another thing that you could do. Rita, you mentioned about this time in society right now, in the world, actually, we're all experiencing this pandemic. Are there things that companies can do now since they can't physically, go on a cruise today? Is there a program or some kind of informational packet that one could review to get a better understanding of what's to offer or maybe what this would look like for them?
It's funny you mentioned that. There is not a lot of information out on the internet, on the interwebs, about a retreat at sea program. So one of my personal / professional pivots that I've done, because obviously my industry has kind of collapsed with the whole pandemic, is I wanted to help educate companies on how they could put a retreat at sea program together. Because I know when I bring it up to friends in conversation, everybody's like, oh, that's so cool, that's so wonderful. And then the conversation kind of stops. And I believe it's because people don't understand how it can work. So I've created a program that's coming out soon. It's called Retreat Anchor. And it's to anchor in all of your ideas for a retreat at sea program. So it's going to be a 5-day, super easy, just a micro course. And you're going to be able to pick out your cruise that you want to sail on. Maybe not your exact cruise, but you can start narrowing down from all the thousands of choices that there are. Day 2, you're going to be able to work on the budget for the retreat. Day 3, you're going to work on a planning calendar so you can kind of see how far in advance you're going to need to plan and different milestones at each, like 3 months down, 2 weeks down, what you need to be doing. You can create your preliminary agenda, which that's really fun. Like you've had this retreat idea and now it's coming to paper and you're like, oh my gosh, I can really do this. And then day 5, we're going to end with an up note with surprise and delights. So we're focusing on your educational program the first couple days, and now you're going to focus on what additional enhancements can you add, whether they're paid or unpaid, to kind of get that more personal relationship built together, because you're doing a lot of learning, but after hours, what can you do just to get to know, like what you were saying, get to know a person on a deeper level, like what do they do when they go home?
Absolutely. I think that's really important. And I think that's great because, like you were saying, a lot of times I feel that organizations may feel that this is out of reach.
Yeah.
And it's just because they've never really dibble-dabbled in it. Maybe they haven't had, a cohesive package offered to them in the past.
Correct.
Or maybe it was just something that was, a thought and never executed. So I think having a better understanding of what company incentives are in motion for that organization's employees is a good conversation to have. I think maybe it would be good, for executives to potentially see like, okay, this year we hit this number, sometimes they will take everyone out to a lovely dinner and give someone a bonus check. Great. Well, maybe they should change it up next year and be like, okay, instead of like physical money, let's spoil them with a trip.
Yes.
A trip of a lifetime, essentially. Or maybe, if they can't do like, 5 days at sea or something, I'm sure they have, quick weekend cruise.
Just a weekend, exactly.
And being in Florida, girl, there's so many cruises that come in and out of here.
Exactly.
Doesn't matter where you're at, there's always a point of entry. So
we have a treasure trove here.
Yeah, girl, it's everywhere. So
yeah, because I think one thing that people don't realize also, because I feel like you hear retreat at sea and you're like, that's gonna cost so much money. But I actually have put together a document, and it's one of the bonuses that you get. But I'll also be talking about this in one of my webinars, that it's so much more cost effective by thousands, by even tens of thousands, to do a retreat at sea versus a retreat in a hotel, just because there's so much included in your cruise fare.
Right. And you're absolutely right about that, because that's actually something that when I was asking a previous account what they did for their employees annually, they would just do a local hotel, like a nice, it was like the Gaylord Palms, so it wasn't like, a crappy hotel. Gaylord Palms is like super nice. It's incredibly expensive. But I thought about how costly that is. And you're right. They could have saved so much more money just going on a cruise and actually being able to go to a different country on top of that.
Yes. Yeah, because let's say it was the same exact price, but you're still in Orlando, whereas you could be in the Bahamas or Mexico, and that just adds a whole other bonding experience.
Absolutely. I know, I had been to Mexico before, but going with your coworkers to another country is pretty cool. The out-of-country experience is amazing. I think it's fantastic. You get to try other foods, other beverages, experience a different climate. It's wonderful. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm all about the food, so that's the first thing I did.
So if we're going to role play a little bit, and I'm going to say a generation, what is if you put their brain in your head, minus the millennial, because that is your brain, when I say, hey, we're going to plan a retreat at sea for our incentive for 2022, what is the baby boomer thinking? Are they like, or let's get into their brain. We're going to plan a retreat at sea, baby boomer. What do you think about that?
Well, can I bring my wife? I'm thinking this is the husband talking. Can I bring my wife? If I can bring my wife, then it'll be acceptable. If I can't bring my wife, it's not going to be acceptable.
I can see that.
So how can you get me out of trouble?
Yeah.
That's the number one thing I can tell you right now, because those people, I'm telling you, they don't deviate. So it's like they're loyal.
Yeah.
They're loyal to their spouse, and they know they're going to get the 10th degree if they go on a weekend cruise.
Oh, how funny.
Without the spouse.
Yeah. So Gen Xer, we're going on a retreat at sea for our 2022 incentive. What do you think about that?
Woohoo! I think that's awesome. Where are we going? Where are we going? That's going to be their number one thing. Where are we going? Because the thing is if it's paid for, they're all about it. Absolutely. They like that human interaction, like one-on-one interaction. So it'll be a good time for them.
See, when you were talking about the Gen Xers earlier, all I kept thinking is like, oh, Gen Xers must like really hate quarantine.
Oh. It's funny because what I've learned, especially in because I do have a lot of peers in that generation, they're really adapting to the Zoom, like Google Meets, whatever, physical meeting platform. So I have noticed this is a difference with that generation versus our generation.
Okay, so let's go to, hey, millennial, we're going to take a retreat at sea for our incentive trip. What do you think about that?
Ooh, absolutely. Are the drinks included?
Ooh. We'll pay for everything else except that.
Yeah, that's what they're going to ask. Are the drinks included?
How
Gen
funny.
Xers are going to be like, where are we going? And baby boomers are going to be like, where's my wife?
Yeah.
Or, can I bring my wife? Or can I bring my significant other?
You know what's funny is that you mention drinks on millennials, and there's more millennials with the company that I work with, and they are always buying the drink package when they go on these trips.
Absolutely, that's all they want to do. I told you, I know my generation, girl.
That's funny. Should we include Xenials in this?
Yeah, so I think they would really enjoy going on a cruise. It's just that most of them aren't of age to drink. So probably wait till they're a little bit older is my opinion on that.
Yeah.
My word of advice, just in general, just because I know companies would probably think about liability, is I would limit it to 21 and up. That's just the thing.
I was going to mention that also because at certain ages you're an adult, but you're not like a full adult. It's kind of like the rental car thing. You have to wait till like 25 so you don't have that extra liability on the policy. So I would say 21 I think is a universal for most of the cruise lines where you don't have to like have a parent come and like chaperone you or anything.
Yeah. I think that's really smart. And to that point, when we talk about the different packages that are offered on a retreat, would an organization be willing to go a little bit above and beyond where they work with the travel agent or advisor who then works with the cruise company to see if they could offer like a group rate or a discounted rate for family members or spouses, as an example, if they're uncomfortable leaving their loved one behind.
Someone there, because that's a consideration. I know some people don't sail, like even though it's being offered to them, they don't sail because there's a time conflict, something that they've already prearranged. I know cruising is not for everybody. I get motion sickness, but I love cruising, so I do like all the wazoo of the holistic treatments to make sure that I am good when I'm sailing. But that's not everybody.
Yeah, that's very true. I don't typically get motion sickness, but I did experience it a little bit on the last cruise that I went on. And it was because I decided to work out, and which I typically do work out when I go on. I'm silly like that. I have like a routine. But I woke up and I decided, hey, I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to use this elliptical while the boat's in motion, overlooking the ocean, because I thought it looked really nice.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I made myself sick after like 5 minutes on that thing. I was like, what was I thinking? So stupid. I should have just like walked around the boat and just got my steps in that way.
Yeah. No,
I was trying to be an overachiever.
I remember one of the retreats that I was on, and like you could see the boat visibly going up and down. And I'm like, well, if I just look outside and I can see it, then my brain will know why it's moving. And then I was like, no, don't look outside. Just look at like a lounge chair or something. Look at the presentation that your group has.
Yeah, you gotta look out and make sure.
Yeah.
It's crazy though. It's nuts because they're like, oh yeah. I forgot what there was like this little bracelet thing that they were trying to get me to wear.
I have
That's not gonna work. Does that work for you?
Yes.
I was so skeptical. I was like, that bracelet's not going to do anything.
They're C-bands because there's a pressure point here. Like you have to count 3 fingers.
Uh-huh.
I swear by them. I don't care if it's like a placebo thing. They work for me. So if it's just my mind tricking myself,
Yeah.
I'm doing it.
I'm so like, it's so funny because I'm like, that thing's not going to work for me. But, I was like, one of those things where I just like kind of did exactly what you did and just sat there, look out straight into the horizon, just focus on just one stationary thing and not think about the boat moving. But other than that, I've never really had motion sickness. It was just my bright idea of doing an elliptical. It makes me think about like some of these cruise lines are over the top with what they have to offer, which is also really cool. So
True.
Rock climbing and all these water slides and surfing and go-karts. And I mean, it's basically like a city on water. It's amazing.
Exactly. Yeah. There's so many things that they offer now, and I am so happy that now they're kind of not retiring, but putting smaller ships on different itineraries. So making the short, like 3-4 night cruises with maybe not large vessels, but vessels that they've reimagined and that have more of all these activities on board.
Yep. You're absolutely right about that. I know that the company that we used when we had the incentive, wasn't the most ritzed out boat. The experience was awesome.
Yeah.
I have to say it was more about the experience at that point. And they had a casino. They had tons of karaoke and like places to go dancing. It wasn't like over the top, but it had enough to offer. And
Correct.
I think meeting with other people and just being able to connect with your peers and make new friends. Like there's people you would probably never think you'd be friends with that you end up being best of friends with.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
because
so I love it.
I would say even at like the most basic cruise, like you still have your Broadway style shows.
Yeah.
You're going to have a comedian or a magician. There's the pool. There's the different lounges and bars. There's still great stuff to offer that a hotel you're not going to get at. Like you're going to get the bars and all that, but the different
you're not getting any Broadway shows in there. You're not getting a comedian. I love that. That's my favorite when they do like the newlywed game.
Yeah, the game
all
shows.
Those people on blast. So funny. And it's always the newlyweds that don't know anything about each other.
Yeah.
But like the couple that's been with each other for like 60 years or whatever, and they're just like, oh, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
That is one of my favorites. Alrighty, so just to wrap this up, because this is my longest episode ever, I hope all the listeners have enjoyed us going back and forth about retreats and the generations and all the other fun stuff we've been going up back and forth on. I know that you have been working on a big survey as part of your doctorate program. Can you just mention a little bit more and see if we can get you some help with your survey?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Thank you so much for bringing that up, Rita. I love it. So I am, as I was mentioning, very interested in turnover intentions of millennials. And I've been focusing in the insurance industry, and I always laugh that, and it's true, everyone knows someone in the insurance industry.
Yeah.
Because everyone has to have insurance, whether it's life and health, whether it's your home insurance, your auto insurance, renter's insurance. So you have to have insurance. So that's the end of the story. So everyone knows someone in the insurance industry. And I've just always been interested on, the economic impact this will have with employees being, or millennial employees being over 65%, or 75% of the entire nation's workforce.
Yeah.
So with that being said, I'm really interested to know what the implications are for turnover intentions of millennials specifically, because with us representing 75% of the entire nation's workforce by 2023, so it's just a few years from now, it's going to be very interesting to see how we can try to work through this problem. So my study is really trying to understand what motivates an employee to leave or stay in an organization. And I really think it's based on the previous research that I've had, where I think there is a correlation between job satisfaction, organizational commitment, and organizational support. I think those three variables are very important to understand to see how it impacts turnover intentions of an employee. So my survey seeks to understand that specifically of millennials in the insurance industry. And like I mentioned, everyone knows someone in insurance. So what I'm trying to do to try and generate results is I'm hosting a bi-weekly incentive. I'm actually, everyone likes money, girl. So I'm hosting a bi-weekly incentive. It's a $50 Amazon gift card. And the reason why I chose Amazon is because I can do everything electronically. My survey is 100% confidential, anonymous. I won't even know that you've completed the survey. So the only way I will know if you've completed it so that you can be entered into the drawing is if you write your first and last name and you email it to me at my email address, which we can provide on the podcast, I'm assuming.
It'll be in the show notes. Check the show notes.
Bellido. This would be so much. But the survey link speaks a little bit more to that. It has additional details on how to enter into the survey if you're interested. And again, I'm hosting a bi-weekly incentive. It takes literally 3 minutes and 24 seconds to complete. I have timed it. The statistics are
awesome.
there. So it's less than 5 minutes.
I love a quick survey.
I'm telling you, millennials don't like surveys, but if it's quick and there's an incentive, they're willing to take it.
Exactly.
So, all right.
If I was insurance, I'd be taking it.
It's awesome. So it's like the results of that study are really going to help us to better understand what motivates us to stay or leave a company. And if I can find that there is this correlation between these variables, we have it in the bag. So this retreat is going to speak to that. The company supporting the employees, as an example, with an incentive. People are satisfied because they're getting these rewards, so they're happier in their workplace, which leads to organizational commitment thereof, because now that they're happy, they're being supported, they're committed, now they're going to stay at your organization. So you just increased your retention. So that survey is going to seek to understand that. So I really thank you for allowing me to do that little spiel.
Of course.
And really hoping to get some turnout with that.
Is there a deadline for responses?
Yes, there is a deadline because I got to wrap this up. I've had the survey out for a while now. I'm looking to close my survey by September 28th. So that is the last day that I will be hosting the incentive. So it'll officially close end of day on September 28th. So right now it's open, and again, $50 bi-weekly incentive, details in the survey link.
Perfect. And we'll have all of that information in the show notes. Thank you so much for coming on and being my first guest.
Oh, thank you, Rita. I loved it so much, and I'm willing to come anytime. So thank you.
Awesome. So listeners, if you have enjoyed our conversation on generations or just the retreat at sea, the whole experience or the planning process, please shoot me an email so that we can either have more conversation or make some resources for you. Thank you so much for coming on, and I will see you guys next week.
Thanks for joining us on the Stronger Tides podcast. Please subscribe to our podcast. And if you found value in this show, we'd appreciate a rating or a share with your colleagues. Find us on social media at Rita Ventures Group Cruising and online at ritaventures.net. Until next time, happy sailing.